Wow, that was a day, wasn't it? That you're not going to get in a hurry.
No, definitely not. Oh, I was like a nervous wreck the day before, I know that much.
Are you trained to become a driving instructor and finding the process tougher than expected? You're not alone. I've helped hundreds of PDIs just like you pass their ADI exams with confidence. And in this video, you'll find out how I supported Drew to achieve his goal. If you like my content, please take a few seconds to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It costs you nothing, but really helps me to grow this channel and support many more people like you. Wow, that was a day, wasn't it? That you're not going to get in a hurry.
No, definitely not. Oh, I was like a nervous wreck the day before, I know that much.
Thanks for jumping on to have this sort of quick follow-up call. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So the purpose of the follow-up call really is to get from you, if you like, a general broad understanding in terms of what your overall training journey was.
Yeah.
How you went about it. You don't need to name any names or anything like that, but just give people a little bit of an overview in terms of how you went about the process.
Yeah.
And then more specifically, to talk about what happened with your part 3 the other day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
over to you, Rick.
Yeah. Obviously, I started training to do the instructor journey in 2023. I think it was the start of 2023. And obviously, I was with a driving school. Obviously, I won't mention names, but the training was all going well. And then after I'd had, I want to say about 40 hours, I went on to probably a bit more. I went on to the pink license. I only had that about a month because before I could go independent, or not independent, off on my own, I had a car actually. It was an 18 plate car, but they weren't happy with it. They said it's too old. Even though it was a Clio, it wasn't anything spectacular, but they wasn't happy with the car. In a nutshell, we had a bit of a falling out, and the instructor that was teaching me at the time, he was on a sort of franchise with the school, and the manager of the school decided he just didn't want to know. Obviously we had a falling out of the class. And the instructor I was using, he says, I can't teach you anymore, even though me and him never fell out. He says, because otherwise he said he's going to sack me if I continue to teach her. And I hadn't done anything wrong, so I could understand if I'd done something out of order, but he just didn't like the fact that he wanted me to have a franchise vehicle off him, basically. He wanted me to pay a lot of money up front, which I just simply didn't have. And so that was the end of that, or so I thought. And I sent my big license back to the DVSA. I thought to myself, no, I'm not giving up. I really want to do it. It's something I'm really passionate about. I've got every category of license on the road now. I've got both HGVs, PSV, motorcycle, all of them. And I was a very seasoned driver, if you like. And I thought, I really want to share that knowledge and increase road safety and whatever, or contribute towards that increasing road safety. So I just pondered for ages, what can I do? And then in the end, anyway, I thought, I'll have a look on the internet. So I had a look and couldn't really find much. So I emailed the DVSA, the PDI email, and I said to them, what could I do? Where do I stand with it? And they responded and said, you can have your pink license back if you find a sponsor with the remaining time on it, as long as you book your part 3, because this was about 2 months before my part 1 was due to expire. So I was like, I'm rapidly running out of time. If I'm going to do it, I need to hurry up, kind of thing. Obviously, the 2 years have passed. We were at the start of 2025, and I was like, I finished the training, I think, late 24. So it's not like I'd gone 2 years with no training. Yeah. So that was that. And then they said, we can give you your pink back, but book your part 3. So I booked the part 3, and I thought, I'm not going to get the pink back, because after my experience of the idea of having to join a franchise and everything, I just didn't want no part of it. I didn't have a great experience with it. Throughout that time from the last one, I'd explored with a few other, the mainstream schools, the big schools. But I just worked out, and I thought, it's just so expensive. It's going to cost me too much money. I thought I'd have to work full time just to pay the fees, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that put me off that. But I thought, book the part 3 and I'll figure it out as I go along. So then I started looking on YouTube and the internet, what could I do? And I came across your video about taking a full license holder. Now, I knew you could do that anyway, but I'd spoke to about 4 ADIs, I think, before you. And everyone that I'd spoken to on the phone really discouraged me from taking a full license holder. They were like, oh, don't do that. I wouldn't do that. I'm sure you'll find someone who's a learner. I said, I genuinely don't know anyone within my family or friend circle that wants to learn to drive at the moment. I actually did know one, but she lived like an hour and a half away from me. So it just wasn't really viable. So anyway, yeah. So then watched your video. Thought, okay, who do I know that's got a full license that could benefit from some training, and then it could also support me. So I was thinking about that at the time, but I thought in the meantime, I'm going to go and get some more training off an ADI just to refresh my memory and to polish up anything that I felt was needed. So I had about another, I reckon, 5 or 6 lessons at an hour and a half each, just to bring me back up to speed and whatnot. And then, yeah, I think sometime around a year ago, obviously my wife had a motorcycle accident, and she lost all her confidence in driving. And every time we've gone out, she tells me to drive. She just won't drive. She tries to avoid it on all accounts and says, "Can you go?" And it's just been like that for a long time. And I thought, actually, maybe we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak, and use that session for me to help my wife as well as for my part 3. And that was it, really. That's what I ended up doing. I ended up taking my wife as a full license holder.
Yeah, and we had a couple of training sessions over Zoom about that. You explained to me the backstory, and I gave you some advice and guidance on how I thought you might be able to best structure using her on a part 3, which essentially I think we arrived at a position of doing a quick assessment drive, picking up on key faults or issues, and then using the rest of the lesson to try to help her develop in at least one, if not more, of those areas.
Yeah.
So obviously people can watch that or those training sessions in full if they want to, but yeah, let's just shortcut things for this particular video because obviously you passed.
Yeah.
So well, congratulations, brilliant, well done. And given your personal circumstances where you knew basically your theory had run out and you had to pass on this first attempt at your part 3, otherwise you were going to have to go back around the whole process again, the pressure was really on.
Definitely, yeah. And I kept trying it.
I would imagine.
It was, yeah. And I kept trying to push it to the back of my mind so as to not put so much pressure on myself. But of course, it was there because I just knew if I didn't pass it, I've got a long, expensive journey to do again.
Yeah. So can you, just in your own words, just give us a quick sort of summary in terms of what happened on the day itself then?
Yeah, sure. One thing I was particularly a bit worried about was how the examiner might view the fact that I've took my wife. And I think I voiced that to you before. I thought, I don't want them to feel like this is some sort of setup. And I think you even said to me, if there's a setup, they'll pick up on it pretty much. So I thought, do you know what, just going completely honest with them. And I'd made a conscious effort not to rehearse anything with my wife. You know, I made sure that I said to her what she might expect on the day, what it might be like. But I says, I'm not going to correct anything that you've said incorrectly to me now because I need to save that for the day. I don't want to put things in your head and improve your driving before then. I want to focus it all in then. So I had to make sure, from my perspective, it was as authentic as I could make it, just to make sure that it was what it wasn't orchestrated in any way. Anyway, I got there. My wife's Polish. English is her second language. So when the examiner came out, she obviously asked me what my sort of plan for the day was, if you like, for the session. And I explained to her that my wife's second language is English. Reason being, I didn't want her to mark me down in any way on my sort of level of questioning, because if I was to ask them higher level questions to my wife, I know she would really struggle with some of the terminology, and I didn't want to start throwing driving instructor jargon at her, basically. So I thought I'll just let the examiner know that. And funny enough, she says, "Oh, but it's got to be conducted in English." And I said, "Oh, of course, I don't speak Polish myself anyway." So she found that quite funny, and she was a really nice woman, actually. I said to her, "My plan is I'm going to do a short assessment drive." Obviously, my wife's had a motorcycle accident, lost all her confidence on the road. She tends not to drive them and definitely doesn't drive with any of the kids in the car. I'd like to try and work towards changing that. Yeah, we went out to the car. She obviously asked me to sit in the car while she had a walk around and check the car over and stuff. She jumped in, and I was expecting her to say nothing to my wife. I thought I was going to have to do all the explaining of why she's there, but she explained that. She said to my wife, "I'm not here to watch you. I'm here to watch him, how he trains you." And I can't remember exact wording. My nerves were all over the place at the time. And I told the examiner that. I said, "I'm like a nervous wreck, but I'm going to get myself together, get myself composed," before we got in the car. But yeah, so we got in. I said to her, short assessment drive, I'm going to see what we pick up and how best I can support her, because she is a very nervous driver. And I hadn't seen her drive for over a year. It must have been, I think the last time I seen her drive actually was just before a motorcycle accident. So it was sort of, I was wondering what to expect as well, because obviously I didn't have no dual controls or anything. So yeah, anyway, so we went. I was a bit unsure of how long to make the assessment, because I know on your video, I think you said about 10 minutes or so, something like that. But the instructor I was getting lessons off at the time, he said, "Oh, I wouldn't go more than 5 minutes. They might think you're taking the mick," kind of thing. Long story short, it lasted 8 minutes anyway, and there was no issue with it. I took her on an assessment drive, tried to cover as many roads as I could. We did spiral roundabouts, right turns, tried to make it the standard you would expect from a full license holder. Couldn't really go on the motorway, because by where I live, it was extremely busy. My test was at 8:30 in the morning. So it was quite busy with people going to work and stuff. So I tried to avoid a lot of the traffic. But we did the assessment drive. And the main thing that I picked up was she was barely using her mirrors at all, even pulling off from the side of the road. No all round observation, really. So it was all centered around that. But she was particularly nervous and panicky on the roundabouts when we were turning. So I thought, okay, I discussed that with her at the side of the road. So I did the assessment, pulled her over, asked her to take a deep, like a breath, breathe out. How did that go? How did you feel? Checked in with that. Kept myself calm, basically. And so we discussed that, the side of the road.
So great. So thanks for that. That's been a really useful insight for me, and I'm sure other people that might watch this. So let's move on to the feedback that you got then. So what was that?
Yeah, she come out and she says, firstly, she says, "I'm going to tell you the result, and then I'm going to explain in some details." Like, right, okay. I thought I was fully prepared to hear you failed. But she said, "Congratulations, you passed." And before she said another word, I was jumping in the air. My instructor was jumping in the air. And I was like, the relief of all that pressure that we were talking about earlier that I felt disappear was unreal. And I've said, "You've no idea how much that helped me." But anyway, so she says, "Let's talk about the feedback then." I said, "Okay." And she said, "The first thing I'd like to say is you seemed really calm, and you seemed to really put her at ease with her nerves, which I really liked." She says, "When we left, she was very stuck to the steering wheel and stiff. And when we come back, she was chatting. If anything, I had to try and close the chat down a couple of times, because, we talked about new road, new mirrors, and she was like, 'Oh, I love that saying. That's going to remind me when I go onto new road, new mirrors.'" So anyway, she says, "The main thing I'd say is your questioning." She says, "I know you explained that you're not going to be using technical terms." She said, "But they could have been a little bit more directed through funneling questions." She said, "So, for instance, when we were facing that 20 zone and you said, 'What do you see ahead?' It left her open to start reeling loads of things off like she did. So if you'd have said, 'Do you see any changes in speed limit ahead?' or 'What speed limit do you see ahead?' or something a bit more directed, and said, 'Okay.'" And I would have preferred to do that anyway. I just thought it was the wrong mood, but I see now, and I've learned something from that. I think that was about it, really. And then obviously there was a little feedback passage on the actual write-up, but that was along the same lines, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there was anything else. At this point, I was just hearing you past, so I was just trying to still tune in. But I have reflected a lot myself, actually, since then, because I'm always looking to improve myself. And I got a grade B. A pass is a pass, and given my circumstances, great. But any other scenario, I'd have been like, I wanted the A. I really wanted the grade A, to be honest. I'm not someone who would normally I normally aim as high as I can think, but you're going to get my grade A in the standards check. So I've been reflecting a lot on what would I have done differently now if I wasn't so nervous. How could I have improved that? And oh, she did give me one other piece of timing. She said the chat at the side of the road was a little bit long, because it was nearly 7 minutes after the assessment, but I did feel there was a fair bit to go through. And she says, and also like the pre-brief before we move off, she said that was a little bit long as well, because it was just over 5 minutes. But she said, I understand why you took that time, because I could see she was very nervous. And given the need of the pupil, I felt that it was appropriate. Yeah. I think what I've took from the whole thing is I need to be refining my questioning more. I need to improve on the way I'm asking the questions and also getting to the point.
As always, when you get feedback from an examiner, then it's something to reflect on and try to work with moving forward, because they're giving you it for good reason.
Yeah.
It's there to help you, not to put you down or belittle you. They're trying to give you some constructive advice and guidance that they think is going to be useful for you moving forward. Interestingly, what you just said about the timings of things in terms of the pre-drive chat, and then chat when you decided to pull over and have a little bit of a deep dive in terms of what you had both gained in terms of knowledge from the first 8-minute drive or whatever. One of the things I think you said to me in one of our Zoom sessions, can't remember if it was the first or the second, is that you had been told by local ADIs they want wheels rolling the whole time.
Yeah.
They don't want you to stop, and don't make your chat at the start any more than a couple of minutes. And if you do have to stop, no more than 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But of course, now you found out that isn't actually strictly true. I suppose just to wrap things up for this chat then, if you were to go back and reflect on the whole process from start to finish, would you, now knowing what you know and having experienced what you experienced, done it the same way, or would you have done it differently? And if you were to do it differently, which bits would you have done differently?
It's a difficult one, because I'd like to say I'd have done more research on the school that I choose to go with initially. But to be fair, this school had quite a good reputation. So it was an unfortunate situation that happened and just a miscommunication. But I think as well, if I'm honest, I probably, had I known I was going to take a full license holder, I would have liked to have got more training in helping someone with a full license that's got a specific issue. But that's just not something you commonly come across, is it really? Because one thing I struggled with at first was the idea of talking to a full license holder like a full license holder and not treating them like a learner.
How, from your point of view, how have you found, because I'm sure it's not just my content, I'm sure you've looked elsewhere as well, how have you found online content in terms of how has that, if it has, supported you alongside your sort of in-car face-to-face training, particularly when it comes to part 3?
I think certain people on YouTube have been really invaluable. I won't mention names because obviously I'm not going to, even positive ones, I won't say any, but there are a couple on there, and especially you being really helpful to my learning. And actually, I found, as I explained to you before, on this part 3, for instance, I ignored some of the advice I was given by the idea that was training me, and I took some of your advice, and that worked. And I still think if I'd have followed what he said on certain aspects of it, I don't think I'd have got the same results. What I wish I could see is, and I'd like to try and introduce it down the line when I'm a bit more experienced as an ADI, is more information given to people who are just starting on that journey. I just find there's not enough information given about what it looks like towards the end of your journey. It's all there's so much out there that's money orientated. I see it all the time. You're going to earn this much money. You're going to do this, come on board. But they don't tell you about the bits with the franchises versus independence and the pink license, how it works. I didn't get enough information, I don't think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, which is why in my online content, for example, I have a free online course which people can take, which is called your Essential Starter Course. But before you've even started your DBS check, for example, just literally from the point of, oh, I'm interested, or possibly interested about becoming a driving instructor. What's it all about? So it's got to take people through a journey of explaining exactly how to go about doing it, what are the pros, what are the cons, who you can train with, again, pros and cons, not trying to guide anybody towards a specific decision point. And I don't run a driving school, so I'm not trying to recruit anybody from my driving school. It's just Yeah, here's the essential information that you need to know. Once you have that, then you can make informed decisions in terms of what route you take next. So, yeah, it is quite difficult to find. There is information out there. It's not going to ever be promoted by the driving schools, though,
Yes, absolutely.
because they have an ulterior motive. They want to sell as many courses as possible to attract as many franchisees as possible, because that's their business model. So they're never going to tell you the full picture. Yeah, congratulations again. Well done.
Thank you. Just got to say thank you to you, Jeff, to be fair, because I didn't have them two sort of Zoom calls with you. I really don't think I'd have passed it, because I had so many questions running around in my head. And I think sometimes it's hard to get a clear answer off some ADIs. And I find, in my experience, some ADIs are still in that let you answer the question yourself mode. So they'll ask you what you think, but sometimes you need clear answer. And actually, you're the only person that I ever came across, online or otherwise, that even told me you could do a short assessment drive at the beginning, because I never thought you could do that. And one ADI said to me, no, you got to do that before you get to your part 3 on your way there. But I obviously did it on my part 3 and it worked out well.
Yeah, I was very confident giving you that advice, because it's what lots of PDIs that I've supported over the years have put into practice, and it's worked for them. So there's a strong basis of evidence there that says it's absolutely fine, and
It's fine, yeah.
and it works as long as it's delivered correctly. It works, which obviously you found out yourself. And in terms of moving forward with your standards check, if you pick up on pieces of feedback and advice that the examiner gave you, you seem a very committed person to me in terms of investing in your own personal development.
Definitely, yeah.
And I'm sure you'll continue to do that. And because of the way that the part 3 works, or whether it's standards check, because basically it's the same form, because so many of the competencies are interlinked and overlapped, if you scored more 3s, than you had 2s, so most of the competencies, you're just looking to lift that mark up by 1.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, very A grade.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 1 3, 1 1, and all the extra 2s. Yeah, you're right. If I am to get them 2s up to 3s, that'd be a pretty good score.
Yeah, so that if you could, in 15 of the competencies you got a 2. So if you could lift those from a 2 to a 3, then you're getting 15 more marks on top of what you got last time. So you got a 34. So that would make it a 49. Yeah. So you're nearly as good as it can get. And obviously, totally understandably, you were very nervous when you got in the car to begin with your wife. Did you stay nervous throughout, or did you start to relax?
No, in fact, actually, when I walked out to the car, I was nervous, and I said to the examiner, I'm quite nervous. I said, I'll switch into my mode when I get in the car. And I did. I got in. And for some reason, once I started talking, the nerves disappeared, because my concentration was on what's going on. And I think my nerves completely disappeared the minute she pulled off from the side of the road, because I was in that kind of analysis mode then, watching what's going on. And I made a conscious effort to spend a lot of time looking at her, looking around at the environment, and making sure I don't miss anything. And also checking things at the right time as well. Like when we were coming off the roundabout, I'm looking over my left shoulder to check there's nothing there. And I wanted to be looking in the right places at the right time, kind of thing. And because of that, I was so distracted, there was no time for nerves. The nerves were just on the build-up, but once I was in there, they were gone.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. And I think that was one of the pieces of advice that I gave you, is when you get in the car, to begin with, turn, look at your wife, focus all of your attention on her, because she's the most important person in the car. Not you, not the examiner. Drew, let's wrap it up there. Thanks very much for taking the time to have a chat with me, and also thanks for agreeing to allow me to share your content with other people. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that, or in what format it's going to be. But yeah, thanks for allowing me to do that, because I think it's going to be really interesting and helpful for other people to watch.
Yeah, stuff, and thanks for all the support you give me as well, Jeff. It's been much appreciated and very helpful.
If you found this video helpful, you'll love my online PDI and ADI training video library, designed to take the stress out of your training, demystify the process, and get you the result you're aiming for. You'll be able to watch Drew's full training sessions, plus 15 other in-car and Zoom training sessions, all broken down into over 150 short videos, which you can watch over and over again. Just click on the link in the description below to get started, and let's get you that ADI badge.